Good morning, everyone. Happy Thursday. It is Catherine Byers-Breet, Chief Stripe Changer with Arbez. I am really excited to have our guest on today with you. Mike Vacanti is going to help me to help you have hard conversations. Mike and I have known each other for about 10 years, and we reconnected when he launched the Humans First Club and launched his book and this and that. And so I'm going to introduce you to Mike in a moment. But to those of you that have been joining me now for 3 months, by the way, good morning, Amy, Brad, Terry, Janine, Charlie, Alex, Bob, Joni, welcome. Glad to have you here this morning. I'm going to start out with a little good news. Now, if you didn't see the news, there's a story out of Detroit. There was a remarkable young man by the name of Stefan Perez, 16-year-old in Detroit. And he decided to lead a peaceful protest. He gathered together 15 friends. They went marching into downtown Detroit. And he just wanted to go and walk with friends. And all of a sudden, people started following them. And before he knew it, he was an impromptu leader of a huge, peaceful protest. And at some points, things were starting to get a little bit heated. And Stefan, somebody handed him a megaphone, and this 16-year-old young man took control of the situation, used his voice, used his light to calm everybody down, ask for peaceful protest. Really remarkable. And that's such a great launch pad for our conversation today with Mike Vacanti. You know, if you've been with me this week, you know that I've been just heavy-hearted and really having a tough time staying hopeful right now in the midst of what we're going through as a nation and as a world. But I've been seeing incredible glimmers of hope and community and leadership at all levels, all over the world. And Stefan Perez is such a great example. And that's what Mike Vacanti has come on to talk with me about today, is how to lead from right where you are, how to be a leader in your family, in your friend group, in your community, in your workplace, how to lead from the skin you're in, and how to have those really tough conversations. So let me tell you a little bit about Mike. He and I met in 2009. I was hired as a consultant to go and work at a global consulting firm that places consultants into IT projects all over the world. And Mike was an EVP, GM, and VP, driving sales, operations, reinvention, lots of things. And here I come in as a consultant to turn around the recruiting organization, which meant talking to the sales team and having some hard conversations about where things were broken between recruiting and sales. And Mike was just delightful to work with. He really embraced the whole project. He was a champion to what I was in there to get to do, and he made it a lot easier for me to be successful. So that was 11 years ago. We've stayed in touch a little bit over LinkedIn. And then 2 years ago, I saw something pop up on LinkedIn and he tagged me on it. And he said, "Hey guys, I'm starting something called the Humans First Club." And I was fascinated and delighted because from my perspective, Mike was a business leader, executive who'd taken 5 companies through mergers and acquisitions. And I thought, what the heck are you up to? Well, Mike is on to talk with us about what inspired the Humans First Club, what's happened all over the world in the last 2 years. Mike, good morning. Welcome.
Thank you, Catherine. And I really appreciate that introduction. And you know what I really love about the story you were telling as you were talking about our relationship and how we met is, you know, being able to live in that healthy tension, right? And use that as the impetus to work together and have that forward view and solve problems. So what a beautiful introduction, because in a lot of ways, it's what we're here to talk about today.
So I met you, EVP, international company. You had a couple of other stints after that, and then you launched your own business. Doing what?
Yes. So I had finished the 5th merger and acquisition. I lived 2 years out in Seattle doing that. And when that was finished, and I came back here to Minnesota, I was looking at what would be next. So really out of necessity, I started consulting. and I built out a high achieving team program, and I was taking that out to companies across the country, and that's where I learned a lot about what's really happening out there in the workplace, and what was the state of the employee. And that was quite enlightening, and that kind of sparked going further into research and discovering a different approach that we could take to address some of those issues. And did the research and came out of it. And once I realized that it was, people were a little bit tired, scared, broken in a lot of ways at a time when change was coming, and we needed to be enthusiastic and creative and energized. There was a big gap there, and that is what prompted the Humans First, is to simply put people in a room and do real research of what's it like to be human in the workplace today, and open up conversations and allow space for people to express themselves.
And what was such fun for me to watch is the minute you launched the Humans First Club with your network, boom, it took off all over the world. So what's happened in the last 2 years with the Humans First Club?
Yeah, it's been a crazy journey, and very different. So all of that business acumen that you nicely shared at the beginning, I had to apply it in a very unnatural way, or of the opposite way, right? Is using all of that acumen to protect this thing called Humans First and let it become what it was supposed to become, without dictating or orchestrating or commanding what it was going to become. So keeping the motion going, but not being in the middle of it, was really an interesting thing. People raised their hands from all over the world. We had 13 live events. Weekly calls have kicked up that bring people in from, we've had 5 continents and 12 countries together at one time. 30 to 60 people on what's now 4 calls during the week, one based out of Singapore, one out of the UK, one out of the US, and now a second one out of the US has kicked up with a different partnership and consortium. So it's been an amazing journey, and it's still at the beginning. So we're going to take it further from here.
And so I want to get into healthy conversations, but I want to stick with just a moment about you starting this Humans First movement, because every day I have people coming to me saying, I want to do something. I need to do something. I want to stand up. I want to make a difference around, first it was COVID. Now it's, the civil unrest, and people say, I want to do something. I don't know what. And my message to them is just start, just do something. No, you're going to have no idea how small, big it's going to go. You don't know where it's going to go. Just start doing something. It could be sewing masks. It could be walking in the streets with your neighbors. It could be doing something like you did, with just start talking to people. So look what's happened in 2 years all over the world. In fact, Mike, since you pushed out the invitation to your network, I have people reaching out to me all over the world. I had and now let's talk about your book, because this morning I had somebody reach out to me from the UK. I had someone reach out from Israel who's offered to come on as a guest on my show. So that all happened between 4 a.m. and 6 a.m. this morning. But so you started the Humans First Club, and that was, every time I talk to you about it, you're just jumping out of your skin, so joyful at what's happening, the conversations that are happening all over the world, the movement that's happening, the change, all of that. And then a book was born, Believership.
Yes.
Tell us about your book.
Thank you for that. What I discovered, what I discovered is, in reflection of how I dealt with business, how I think I showed up as a leader, I thought it was very natural while I was doing it. However, I was told several times that I kind of leaned in way too heavy on the touchy-feely stuff. and my, but I was able to stay true to my values and beliefs. And, I joke sometimes, Catherine, that's why I did 5 mergers and acquisitions, because I didn't stick around for 1, 2, 3, or 4. When the alignment wasn't there with the leader, I would move on, because it really had to be about the success of all of the people around me, with me. And and doing it together. And plus, I like to innovate and create. But for believership, it really is. We've adopted these. We've carried forward these old idyllic models of leadership. They're almost fables at this point, right? And I think they're flawed, and we see them in job descriptions, we see them in interview scripts, we see, the way we identify a leader is built on an old model, right? It's basically a man that can take his country to war is kind of the foundation of a lot of our leadership beliefs. And when we look at the great leaders of our time, the truth is they were all very unique people, very different, more different than the same. And there wasn't a thread of character or characteristics or ideas that went through them. But there was one truth that combined and did run through all of them, is other people believed in them. Their superpower was other people willfully committed, attached, and did great work around them, because none of them did it on their own. And we're at an inflection point now where command and control is no longer the great skill that will move companies and build believership and move people forward. It is that empathy and being able to get people to believe in the vision, mission, values, attach themselves and bring their best efforts to move things forward. That's the basis of believership. And I share personal stories, I share research and some ideas that hopefully shake the foundation of old thinking.
And so, Michael, good morning, Michael. By the way, we've got Gary Turner on here. I want to talk quickly about that and then move to questions from our audience. So good morning. Actually, it's good afternoon for you, Gary, in the UK. I know you and Mike are doing something really special around Humans First, but I want to share with you a message that popped up on LinkedIn this morning about your book, Believership. Michael Taiwo just shared a link to your book. And this is from Iris out of the UK. She's a global head of marketing. And she said, I have Mike's book. I'm only halfway through. It is such an inspiring and uplifting learning and rethinking read. No matter if you're in a leadership position or not, this book also resonates in regards to self-leadership for all of us. So grab his book. You can get it online. I bet you can get it. Is it available via Kindle?
Yes, it's available Kindle as well.
Fantastic. So before we shift to questions online, tell me about, we're here to talk about how to have tough conversations, keep them safe and healthy with a focus on moving forward. And you and I have talked really honestly, we are both white people who are trying to find our way forward and figure out, how do we stand up right now? How do we lead and respect and honor the experiences that we cannot, we can empathize, but we don't know what that feels like. So how do you do that? And you said to me that, this is scary territory. And you and I are both worried about saying the wrong thing, drumming up a hornet's nest. So how do you have these hard conversations? And you have been brave enough to say, let's do this globally. So what are you and Gary Turner up to?
We are opening up the dialogue with that vulnerability. Gary leads and has for some time now done a Value Through Vulnerability podcast. It's now Value Through Vulnerability, boosted by Humans First. And that's what kind of kicked it off, is how do we start these conversations using the platform of the podcast, and it expanded from there. But really the impetus, I think, for both Gary and I is, and I think this may resonate with people, if you're feeling a little bit confused from all of this, just sit in that for a second, because I was uncertain how to reach out to very good friends of mine in the community, because I was stuck. I was hurting. I was confused, and I was a little bit afraid of how do I approach that conversation without just, on some level of platitude, which didn't feel that it met the degree of intention and care. So people asked me, I said, you just kind of disappeared for a week. Where'd you go? And I had to go inside to understand where I really, to rethink for myself, where do I really stand on all of this? How do I show up for my friends and for those around me? How am I leading for myself? And Gary, a good friend of mine in the UK, and we've been collaborating on Humans First work, had that same experience. And so we decided to step into it, as uncomfortable as that is. We were compelled to try to invite others in to explore for ourselves, where do we really stand on this? And what are we willing to learn?
And so, a couple of things. And Gary, if you don't mind, because I know you're with us this morning, will you please put a link to where people can find you and your values through vulnerability? Is that the name of the
Value
podcast?
through vulnerability, yes.
Value through vulnerability. We would love to have people find that podcast and start participating in the conversation. Two things. First of all, um, I've been speaking to friends of mine that are African American, just trying to say, how are you doing? Do you want to talk about it? And one of them said to me earlier in the week, because I said, I'm just gonna be really honest with you. I don't know how to show up. I don't know what to say. And she said, you know what? Because you're a woman and because you've shared with me that the Me Too movement was incredibly personal for you. I mean, I'll be on, yes, I am one of the women who had horrific experiences under that, hard experiences under that. I was afraid to speak out as a woman in the middle of all that. She said, you actually can identify with what's happening right now across the country. She said, I am seeing a lot of parallels for myself as a woman in the Me Too movement and as what's going on. And she said, but I think men can understand as well. Even white men can understand what's going well. So anyway, step one is to, and you've said it, to look inside yourself. And you said you need to own your bad word.
No.
You need to recognize where your emotions are, where they're coming from, what your own history is, what your own baggage and bias is. Understand all of that, and then try and understand people who may have different opinions, where they're coming from. So that's the first thing that you have said to me, which I think is so powerful. What are the ground rules? How are you creating a safe place with Gary for these conversations to happen without them turning ugly and emotional and volatile? How are you making it safe?
It's where we point the arrow from the beginning. What's the intent of this? And the intent is to do the learning, to give everybody a voice, and to synthesize that rich dialogue into further action. So it's not to solve a debate. This is not a TV show. This is not what we get taught to do on the TV news every day, is just debate with each other and bicker. It really is to say, can we all step into the circle from our entry point right now? Just bring the simple admission ticket of curiosity. And what we do is we all have the strength for a moment in a conversation, in that space and time, to care about the other person first. And when we can do that and put our listening in before our talking, to understand that we have to own our bias. You brought up bias, right? So we all have that. It's a natural thing, and it's not all going away.
Yeah.
But when we can surface our unconscious bias and realize how we show up and act is sometimes not how we think we're showing up and acting.
Yeah.
And the discovery is, let's just do that through conversation. Hear other people's experiences and allow them to have the experience without judgment. It can't be right or wrong. It's their experience. your experience can't be right or wrong. It's your experience. When we put that together in a caring, listening environment, I think that richness will emerge.
So I think we need to take some questions and ideas and success stories from our audience. So what I'd really love to lift up, we have really smart people that tune in every day with us for the daily show. And I'd love to know what's working for you. Now, the reason that I felt so compelled to have Mike on and have this hard conversation is every single one of us has friends, family members, neighbors who look and feel very differently than us. We have people who look and sound like us, who feel very differently than us. And I have been struggling to have conversations with people who are on such the opposite side from me. And so because it's been hard for me these last 10 days, we have to talk about it. And so I want to lift up what's working for you. Sometimes I have to step away from a conversation. Sometimes I get so emotionally wrapped up that I know I'm bringing my baggage to the conversation and I cannot engage in a productive manner. And so I actually asked permission from a friend over the weekend. I said, both of us are getting upset right now. Can we come back to this another day? We are all raw right now. 3 months of shutdown. We're just so raw. Can we come back and talk about this? So anyway, what's working for you?
Can I just respond to that really quickly is part of that invitation of inviting people in as they are from the position that they stand in today is there is no right or wrong. And we have to understand that because whatever is the right way to approach this, I don't see any evidence of that discovery being put into practice because this has been going on for my whole lifetime. It hasn't been solved. So we embrace that opportunity of just coming in with the idea of if we can stop trying to prove our point of view and focus on improving for everybody, I think that's kind of the directional arrow.
So Mike, that leads me into your freebie today. You put together a really nice guide, how to have hard but healthy conversations on racism. And point number one, ask yourself why you want or need to have this conversation. Is now the right time? So understand your personal intentions. Number two, be brave enough to recognize your own baggage, bias, emotions. Number three, decide, do you want to prove something or do you want to improve the situation? And you said that to me when we were prepping and I just said, whoa, this is not just about conversations on racism. This is on conversations with my kids about why do I have to tell them to mow the lawn? This is just human being conversations. So with my kids, yesterday, I couldn't believe it. I came home and then nobody had mowed the lawn, for Pete's sake. And before I blurted out, what's going on, guys? I had to ask myself, what's my intention? Do I want to prove that once again they disappointed me, or do I want to improve the situation and inspire them to do it on their own next time? And fortunately, I chose door number two because of you. So here come the good insights from our amazing people online. Jordana says she decided to shut down her Facebook account for now. So I am sure there were people in her network on her feed that were just going down that dark and ugly road. She just shut it down. Number two, conversations online can be like fuel. There need to be smaller group conversations. And in fact, to your point, Jordana, Mike, I think that you and Gary are by design creating conversations with, is it 3 to 4 people?
We are 3, 4, 5 people. Yes.
Okay. All right. So that's Jordana shutting down Facebook, small group conversations. Mary as a problem solver, she's a problem solver and finds it very hard to shut up and listen. For a different reason, I find it hard to shut up and listen because I am so passionate about moving forward and finding a silver lining. So, Mike, I was smiling when you said you get in trouble for being too touchy-feely. I
Yeah.
get in trouble for being too positive. People get annoyed by my silver lining. We can do this. Not everybody can stomach me. And so I have a hard time shutting up and listening. So, Mary, I'm with you. And people like Mary just want to be heard. If you are just willing to stand or sit with somebody and say, do you want to talk about it? And then bite your tongue and shut up. And I'm saying this to myself as much as I am to you. It's incredible what can unfold. Olga asks herself, and I think Olga's joining us from the UK. Olga says, what is my intention? What is the outcome that I want to achieve? So what am I trying to prove or improve? And what is my desired outcome will really, really guide that conversation. Excellent ideas. Alex stopped using Facebook years ago, but it is a platform that seems to automatically escalate into craziness. Let me put this out to all of you. I'm on LinkedIn almost all day long. I am not active on Facebook, partly because I don't have a ton of time, largely because of why a lot of you are shutting it down. But what's interesting is in the last 10 days, I have felt a need to get, actually since COVID broke out, I have felt a need to find time to get more active on Facebook and push out positive messages. Give people good stuff to read about and act on and think about, to counteract all the negativity, because Facebook is the largest platform in the world. And if we just go away and run away from the hard conversations, things can go very, very dark. So that's my 2 cents worth. All
I
right.
love that. And think about that content stream, like what we consume. Those are choices. And what's interesting when you talk about social media, and people often don't think about this, Catherine, many of us will watch the TV news and have that same reaction. So when we look at what's our entry point and to pause for a moment, I would ask everybody to be conscious for a second today, tomorrow. Do you find yourself talking back to the TV news? If you find yourself making a comment to people talking to you from your TV,
Yes.
I would go for a walk. I would turn
Yes.
it off and go for a walk. That's not the place to be. It's like being in that argument you don't want to be in. So
So,
just a good trigger.
Mike, this always happens. We only have 3 minutes left. I want to share a couple of more comments, and then I want to make sure people know how and where to find you. Janine shares that she was born into brown skin and she had to learn early on that she is worthy, smart, and loving. If people have a problem with that, she releases them and goes to find people who are willing to meet her with an open heart and improve life's experience. And so I did a live stream yesterday called Making Hope Happen. And we were talking about this. How do you fill your gas tank? How do you find the hope? How do you put hope out into the world? And so Janine, since her childhood, has been very actively on a daily basis removing the people who judge her for her skin color and everything else, and seeks out people who are willing to meet her halfway. And I just love that. Lori says, thank you, Janine. Amen. Lots of amens. So Gary said, really good thing for you to do right now is to walk through your fear and reach out to a peer of color and let them know that you are thinking about them and that you are there for them. She spoke with a U.S. woman of color from her workplace yesterday, and it was an incredible experience. Yeah, so I want to thank Mike. Thank you for being you, being brave enough to lead these conversations, for showing up this morning. How can people find you? Where can they find you?
Please find me on LinkedIn and jump in, invite me in, and we can start the conversation. Take a look at humansfirst.club. For those of you who are looking for that open heart, that group of people where you will be seen, and people that, don't know everything, we're learning everything. It's there. And then mjvacanti.com. And I'm open and ready to engage the best I can.
And Mike, as we wrap things up, my gas tank got filled last night. My band buddy came over, socially distancing on the deck. We were practicing guitar, singing, and my 17-year-old son came out, picked up his guitar, and I feel like a new human being this morning. You have 5 children. You've got one of them is coming in this weekend. So what are you guys going to do this weekend to fill your gas tank?
We like spending time together. So it'll be a lot of family time, game time. The pool's out here and open, and it's a lot of sitting still, just enjoying the relationships with each other. That's kind of our joy.
Thank you everyone for joining us this morning. Tomorrow, Friday, I'm going to be talking about how you can help your unemployed friends. So tune in, invite everybody you know, especially those who are working, because what they're doing is probably not the best way to help their unemployed friends. It's going to be a good conversation. I hope you'll join us. Mike, thank you again. And to all of you, be safe, be brave, and let your light shine, because we need your light in this world right now. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone.